Hello and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers interview series. I'm your host, John Channon, and today I'm joined by Bryan Goltzman, who is the owner of Liquid Screen Design. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, John, for having me.
Yeah, would you like to kick us off with a brief background as to who you are, what you do, and then the business that you're in?
Sure. Like John said, I'm Bryan Goltzman and I own Liquid Screen Design, and we're what I call a physical marketing company. Physical marketing, different than other types of marketing. Lots of people think of it as promotional products or swag or merch. Where we kind of make the difference in what we do is we think of it more as a marketing piece. So you're paying for the marketing and you get the swag piece as part of that marketing. Yes, often somebody would say to us like, can you put my logo on, a shirt or a hat or something like that? And we do that all the time, but where we really make the difference for a lot of customers is to say, okay, so what are your actual goals? And let's figure out how we can achieve those goals with whatever resources you have, because it doesn't have to be more expensive to actually achieve your goals, right? So, perfect example, people always say, you know, I want to do 10,000 pop sockets. And it's like, well, your logo's a rectangle. Nobody's ever heard of you before. And the back of your phone is like the most precious point for most people. They're not going to rep your brand. They've never heard of you. So like what is your actual goal? And now let's try to figure out what the marketing plan is for that goal, regardless of price, and try to figure out, maybe you don't need 10,000, maybe you only need 500 of something that's more impactful. So that's what we do over here at Liquid Screen Design.
Okay, so, we had a little conversation beforehand. You mentioned you had been a lobbyist before. So what was that spark that led you to get into this business?
Yeah, so actually, I'd always been in nonprofit work. So even before being a lobbyist, I was director of a nonprofit that was in charge of the Midwest and the Southwest regions of the United States. And in in 2010, when we started the business, uh, I was basically like I had done enough. I was traveling about 150 days of the year, and I was about to get married, and my wife was like, "You're not traveling 150 days of the year with me moving to Minnesota." And so I was started to look for other work. And I took a different nonprofit job. I left the nonprofit I've been with for I've been there for 15 years. And then I took a different job and Madoff happened. And I was out of work for 2 years. And I talked to my business partner, my co-owner, who was in a different job. And he said, I did this job in college. I had this business. This might be something you want to do. And ultimately, what I started thinking was like, okay, so I went to Chicago and we kind of like brainstormed the whole plan. This was in 2008-ish. And we started doing it, started like thinking about it. And, came home from being in Chicago. So that was like 2010. Came home from being in Chicago, ready to go, and I was offered this job as a lobbyist, full-time lobbyist in Minnesota on poverty issues, which I loved, and I did that for 7 years, with this being the side hustle for me.
Oh,
And it was completely a side hustle, and every year it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until the point in 2017 where we were talking to each other, and I loved my job. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the work that I was doing. Thought it was really important. My business partner was a COO of a summer camp, and he loved his job. And but we were like, okay, well, it can always be the side hustle, or it could be much, much more. And so in 2017, we decided to leave our jobs and take that big leap into this full time. And almost immediately, like the original plan was it was going to be me and him for like a year or 2 years, and then we'd figure it out from there. Within a few months, we were already starting to hire people because we realized we couldn't do everything ourselves, and the business just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Um, yeah.
so talk to us about starting up a business as a side hustle, right? Because you got a full-time job and now you're kind of starting this up. What was that like, and what were some of the things you really needed to make sure you focused on with the side hustle to make sure it was viable and you could make it work?
Yeah, really challenging, right? Because number one, you have a full-time job. I also had I had a kid in 2012. My son was born in 2012, and then I had another one later. It was still, well, it was a side hustle. Fortunately, my employer would like completely understood that I would had this side business, and he fed me some business as well. For on the lobbying side, and it was really open to everything, but we didn't know anything, right? My partner had this business in college. It was all catalogs and stuff like that then, right? And now there was the internet, and the business was completely different. So we had to learn the business, like how to do the business. Made lots of mistakes. Had lots of, was lots of friends and relatives that were the first buyers from us, and it was every time you would learn something or you'd run out of time, right? Because it would be, the season where you're at the Capitol every day, and I couldn't make a purchase order or even figure out how to do something that I never done before. We picked up, this was probably in 2015, 2014, 2015, picked up a major client, like a big nonprofit in Minnesota, and we just blew it. Like,
No.
I mean, we did a lot of business with them over time, but like we kept making mistakes. And the reason why we were making mistakes is because I had another full-time job, right? So it turned out fine. Ultimately, they ended up starting using somebody else, which I completely understood. We had a big, actually, where it ended with them was COVID. They ordered, I want to say 30,000 cowbells for a tournament that they were having, and they called me up like as 20, like when the announcement happened that everything was going to shut down. And I mean, just imagine with 30,000 cowbells come rolling down the street, what that must sound like. But they wanted to put the order on hold, but they were already like shipped and on their way. And that was the last order we had from them. And they really struggled also. But like I could see the writing was on the wall. Part of the issue was we just weren't as professional as we needed to be because we had other jobs.
So, given the experience that you had with side hustle and then now obviously running the business full time, what are some of the things you would want to tell people if they decided to go down that route to make sure that they're aware of and make sure that they're moving towards?
Well, I think you really got to give yourself some grace, right?
Mhm.
When you're doing a side hustle, I mean, I was working a lot of hours for my regular job and then working on top of that hours to make this business happen. My intention was kind of like, well, it's a good side amount of money, paid for my cell phone, paid my cable bill, right? Like maybe a vacation once a year. Like it was not a lot of money. But you got to give yourself a lot of grace when learning something brand new, even if it's not a side hustle, to like understand you're going to make mistakes and it's your name on the line. I say that all the time to my staff. I say, the reason why Benji, that's my partner, and I are so invested, it's like it's our name. People know they related to us, and it's hard early on when you don't necessarily know everything and you're trying to project that you know and are able to handle stuff and knowing when you can't. I mean, we turned down, I remember we got an order, it was for a purchasing group, and it was like we needed to do an RFP, and it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars in this order. And we looked at it and we were like, this could bankrupt us if we, if we actually took it. So you also have to know when you not only don't know it, but you can't do something. So you have to be honest with yourself also what your capabilities are.
So let's talk a little bit about your business now, right? And talk to us a little bit about how you're staying innovative and adaptable, because a lot of things are changing right now in our industries. So talk to us about that. What are some of the things you do to remain innovative?
Yeah, so right now we have 25 people, full-time people on our staff, and then we
Mhm.
have another dozen or so part-time people that do different things. One of the things I always like to say to our staff, so I'm really in charge on the operation side. My partners really is in charge of the sales side, which is an important thing. If you have two partners and you're watching this, two people running the business, delineate who does what. because if you're both doing everything, you're never going to accomplish the big goals that you need. I was prior to 2020, I was also doing sales. We were both doing everything. This was a game changer for us. But what I would say is the way to remain innovative, and like I said, I say this to our staff all the time. I want to think as big as possible. So, the joke I always used to say to people was, I don't know if I want my name on a NFL stadium, but I want the option, right? I want somebody to say, well, are you interested? So, what does that mean when it's day-to-day tasks? It's always thinking about what the future holds. What's your differentiator? How do you stand in your market separate from other people? In our space, there's two big, really big players. I'm sure people have seen the commercials for them. They do like $1 billion each. One does apparel, one does hard goods like water bottles and stuff like that. Well, just because there's two like that doesn't mean that there's Coke and Pepsi. Well, there can still be, other drinks in the middle, right? You can still have water, right? The big water companies or whatever, you have to decide what makes you different, what makes you special. And you could be up there with those. McDonald's and Burger King, well, there's still Wendy's, right? There's still Taco Bell. And those are still big players in the space. So I always try to push our staff to think as creative and innovative as possible. We started using AI before everybody was using AI. Like I got a free demo of it and we were like, okay, let's see what that looks like. And I was blown away. I was basically writing emails in the tone of Dr. Seuss to everybody. And I was like,
Oh my
you
gosh.
have to see this. You have to see what this is. And then all of a sudden, ChatGPT became a thing that everybody kind of knew about. Um, our office, so we're 100% remote, our team. We were before COVID and we are still, and we have a virtual office. Our virtual office looks like 1990s Zelda on top of Zoom. So all day long, I actually don't have a phone on my desk. I just walk up to my staff with my little avatar guy, walks across, and we go to their desk and I ring the bell and then we pop up and have informal conversations all the time, which obviously those informal conversations lead to business growth always, right? That's one of the hardest things about being remote is having those organic conversations that create stuff. So our even our office is an innovative piece, and I would say this is the future. The company, I don't get any kickbacks. It's called Gather Town. I would recommend anybody that is working remotely. I think this is the future because even when asynchronous work, I have kids sick. When you were out of the office and there was a meeting going on, you were completely out of touch of what happened. This, I think, is the future of work, is having that opportunity to still be in a virtual office. So that would be a like really, anybody that's listening to this, go and check it out because it's super cool. Or if you want to meet me and I'll show you our office, I'm happy to show you our office.
Yeah, I always thought that, there was something you could do with metaverse to basically be able to have an office, virtual office environment. So,
That is what we actually have a whole thing on our website about the metaverse because we produce some swag for the metaverse.
oh, cool.
We have built out offices for other people because like the platform has all these templates, but we will like the actual building something for yourself is more complicated. And so we have four graphic designers on my staff. And so we had them build the office how we wanted it. And so what we've done is when somebody's come to us and said, "Oh my God," most people walk into our office, they go, "Never seen anything quite like this before," right? And then we're like, "Well, if you need something like this, you're having an event or you need a virtual office, we can build that for you." And they tell us what they want, and our artists design it for them. So we've done that. We've sold some NFTs. We've sold some virtual type swag items. But like, so we actually have this on our website about metaverse swag is what we call it.
Oh, interesting. And I'm sure you're looking at me saying, how the heck does he know about the metaverse?
I think everybody needs to know, right?
I
So
agree.
you're a business owner, you need to be thinking about what the next 5, 10 years is going to look like for everybody.
So let's kind of build on that. Would you offer us a glimpse into your future plans and goals that you have for your business?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we see is one of the driving factors that has driven our success is we're really creative. And so we are constantly trying to innovate into different areas. Um, so, for example, we're not that big, right? In our industry, we'd be considered a medium-sized company. There's a lot of mom and pops, and then there's some really big players, and we're kind of in the middle, but we punch way above our weight. You know, we my business partner and I both speak at various functions. I'm on our industry magazine's editorial board. People on our team have been nominated for many industry awards. We're like best places to work, all of those things. Well, how do we do all that stuff? Is because we have learned what we do is we listen to podcasts like your podcast and learn from other industries about what makes a company successful. And where I think that the future lies for us is not only providing the swag and the marketing, but also providing some service and teaching and support to other people in our industry that, there's 3 million products. Those 3 million products in our industry can be decorated hundreds of different ways. And each vendor has, and we work with, everybody's got access to the same thing, whether you're a small business or a large business. How do you do any of that? How do you have online stores? How do you build from, nothing and having no investors to having, being 8 figures, right? Like all of those things, 8, 9 figures. So you could be, like I said, there's somebody that's doing $1 billion in the industry, right? That company started from scratch. So kind of helping I think in a consultant fashion, helping people in our industry kind of grow what their repertoire is. And we've already sort of started positioning ourselves in that space with lots of people saying, like, we actually just changed from a order management system to a new ERP system. We're like in the process right now. We're started November 1st, but we have brought along 3 other companies like ours along with us because they look to us to show them the way of like what's a way for them to grow themselves. So it's not only partnerships with our customers. We think of our customers as partners. We're their marketing team, but also our like other people in our industry. Our industry is actually really good about that. It doesn't feel like you're taking from anybody. It's a $27 billion a year industry. So like the chances that I'm going to get the swag order from somebody that you got the swag order from before is very minimal. So we want to help people raise the level across the industry so people don't think of swag as like what we call brand fill, junk
Yeah,
that you get that's branded that you just throw into the landfill. So we want to elevate the industry.
good. So knowing that this show, right, is going to be targeted towards people that are probably going to be in their first few years of business, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, yeah, the best part about owning your own business, right, is you can work half days whenever you want. You just pick the 12 hours, right? But seriously, like, you have to, when you're starting a business, like it's a lot of work. I think people don't realize that. You think you have to stay motivated. You have to hustle. Every day is a hustle. Every day is a risk. You make a decision today that may risk the entire business. So what do you do? How do you stay motivated? How do you keep pushing forward? One of the things that I tell all of our staff is I want on their desk or on their whiteboard or whatever a vision board of what they want to achieve, right? Do they want a second home? Do they want a first home, right? Like, what are these big, giant things that they may want that they need to achieve? And if you see that every day, it's a lot harder to scroll Facebook or Twitter, right? Because you're looking at it going, okay, I want this expensive watch. It costs $10,000, for example. How am I going to get that if I'm busy just like playing on the internet, right? Like it makes you focus on that end goal. And that's what I would say to a new entrepreneur is like you're going to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, figure out what your niche is and how to make that excel. So and then be thinking as big as possible. Don't be satisfied at okay, it's enough for what I want when like you can push yourself to be something really great. That's why everybody goes into business, right? You want to be great. It's not about just being like mediocre and just surviving. You want to have something substantial. And I think that that's a good way to do it is have that vision board.
That's great. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today, Bryan. It's been great having you on our show.
Well, thank you again for having me. So happy to be there.
That's great. So, and to everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.